Samantha and welcome to my YouTube channel Sewing in Switzerland. So last week I showed you a tutorial or a skill share on how to add gathers into your fabrics and how to make them. That was typically the usual way to do it with, you know, parallel lines of very long stitches. Today we're looking at what you would need to do if you wanted to make gathering stitches on thicker weight fabrics. So that typically worked for cottons and just kind of your everyday kind of lighter weight fabrics, viscose, etc., linens, for instance. This is for those thicker weight fabrics. So I've got kind of a light to mid-weight denim here that I'm going to use as an example. But this also works on much heavier weight fabrics such as velvets and thicker denims, and you're kind of ordinarily hard to use fabrics, so taffetas, organzas, anything that's like feels a little bit plasticky or has that kind of difficult movement to it. So I'm going to be using this denim as an example here, and we're going to be using the dental floss method, which is super fun. So what you'll need to have is just your standard pins, your fabric and scissors and your sewing machine, and of course some dental floss. So this is just standard dental floss that you can purchase in the supermarkets. There's nothing special about it. And I mean like dental floss that you would use on your teeth, for instance. So it's just standard everyday dental floss. And what we are going to be doing is using this to create our gathers on our much thicker fabric. So I'm just going to zoom out. There's not really much prep involved with this. You want to take your dental floss and just pull it to make sure that you've got enough to go the width of your fabric where you want to add your gathers there. So you can see that's about enough. So I'm just going to trim that. And you want to make it much longer than the dental floss that you'll need because, you know, just in case. We'll want to leave nice long tails on each side. So you just want to make sure that that has enough room there. And then I'll meet you at the machine because there is really not much to it. So I shall see you at the machine for our next step. Okay, so I'm at the machine and you can see I've brought the fabric and the dental floss. So you want to hold it between your thumb and your index finger. Is that right? The second finger? Is that an index finger? Whatever, this finger here. And you want to make sure that you've got your long tail that we accounted for when we cut our dental floss. So we're going to be doing this basically by feel, by eye and by hand. So you can see we've got no pins. We've got nothing to hold this dental floss in place. So we're just going to go really nice and slow. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to sew over the dental floss using a zigzag stitch. So you're going to set your machine to just a zigzag stitch, and then what I like to do is lengthen the width and the length. So I'm just going to go up to about 6 width, maybe a 3 stitch length. So I'm going to make sure that I've still got this nice and tight, this dental floss, and then I'm just going to lay it onto the machine here. Again, keeping that tail kind of out the way. And you're just going to lay that down on your machine. You don't want to go too close to the edge, especially if you're not used to doing this. You know, give yourself a wider berth to definitely practice this one. So you can see the fabric is kind of facing away. The dental floss is going to just fall across the fabric, pulling towards you. And then with that zigzag stitch, what I'm going to do is just turn the hand wheel a couple of times on the machine. So it's moving nice and slow, just so I can see that I've got enough room between that zigzag stitch to capture the dental floss. So you don't want the needle of your sewing machine to pierce the dental floss at all. You want the zigzag to zig over the top of it and underneath it so that it forms like a zigzag channel that your floss sits in. So at no point should that needle pierce or catch that dental floss. It's just acting as like a channel in which to hold this. So I'm going to go nice and slow, and you'll be able to see that get captured, and then just kind of stick with me and you'll see what that looks like in a minute, so you can see how that zigzag sits over the top of that dental floss there. So I'm just going to start moving it with my foot, and remember, don't back tack at any point. You don't need to, you don't want to back tack at any situation here. So I'm just going to now put some light pressure on the presser foot, on the pedal, sorry, and we'll just kind of move a little bit faster. But again, if this is like really uncomfortable for you and you just want to practice a bit more, you can just keep going here with your hand turning on the machine here, and just kind of move it along that way until you're comfortable. So you can see I'm just kind of guiding that dental floss with my finger on my right side here, whilst I make sure that the fabric that is moving across it is moving, nice and steadily. So again, don't worry if it's a little bit wonky. You don't want to get too close to the edge in case your zigzag catches that edge there. This is one of those things that I do really recommend first doing a few practices on. It can take a little while to get the knack of it. And again, go nice and slowly, so you can see here the fabric is kind of pulling this way. We want it to sit nice and straight, so I'm just going to push that to the back there. You want your fabric to kind of sit flush to the machine, so it's pointing that way. It's not pulling this way at all. There's no drag from it at any point. And again, you just want to make sure that your finger's holding that dental floss in place. Whoops. And if you do keep sewing over it and catching the dental floss, just go back and make your zigzag stitch a little bit wider, a little bit longer. Just give yourself more room to play with, to practice. Trust me when I say this is a tricky skill to master. So if you're thinking, oh, this looks nice and easy, and then you go and give it a go and everything kind of goes, up the creek, don't worry about it. It is a very tricky skill. So just practice it, take it slow. It's not going to be, a first time thing that you're going to do it and get it right and it's going to go great. It is going to go wrong. And that's okay, because we're learning skills and we're trying new things. Okay, so when you get to the end there, you're just going to flip up your presser foot. You're going to pull your threads and pull it off. And now I'm going to show you what that looks like. We have created a channel here where you can see that dental floss sits in between those threads, so it's like a little thread channel for it, so you can see where it's pulled along. And ordinarily, if you're doing your gathering stitches, you can see at this point you'd start to see those lovely gathers forming, but because we're doing the dental floss method, there's no indication of that, because it's a much heavier fabric, so it's much harder to maneuver. So what you want to do is, ignoring your threads, you just want to cast them aside. You just want to wrap that dental floss around your finger there, and we're just going to pull ever so slightly on that dental floss. And you can see here the very tricky, ordinarily very tricky or heavier weight fabric, in this case denim, is starting to gather, and we've got those lovely folds there. So you just want to keep very gently pulling that, and you can see we're starting to get those lovely gathers. So just keep on pulling that dental floss, and you can pull it a lot harder than what you would ordinarily be doing with your threads. So on the other one, when we use the lighter fabric and we pull gently on the threads, we have to be very careful so that we don't snap it. With the dental floss, it's a lot more durable, it's a lot more hardy, so you can definitely give it a much, you know, meatier pull. So we're just going to keep pulling on that. There you go. And then what you might want to do is wrap that around your other finger as well, just so that it holds. And then again, you can just here we go. Lovely. Just want to keep pulling that, keep winding it around your finger. You can see my fingers starting to go purple, so I'm just going to unwind and then rewind. Gosh, I'm feeling like Craig David over here. So there we go. You can see it's now almost half the size, and we've got these fantastic gathers that are starting to appear. It's also a lot easier to get much more organized gathers. So you'll know that doing from ordinary gathers on a lighter fabric, they kind of, you know, they've got their own purpose. They go where they want to go. But with the dental floss method, you get much more clearer gathers. They're much more organized. They sit in a much more easier to manipulate way. I mean, look at that. That looks absolutely fantastic. Beautiful gathers. So then what you would do ordinarily with your fabric now, so this is usually, for example, a skirt piece, and then you would pin your bodice, and you would do that in the exact same way that you would do ordinary gathers. So you would pin your bodice piece right side to right side over your gathers there, and then you would just sew them down with your seam allowance in place, and that'll hold all these beautiful gathers in place. And you can just pin it as well now, if you're pinning, you know, a bodice piece or whatever you want to do with these heavier weight gathers, you can pin that as you would ordinary gathers, and they'll stay in place. So there you go. That is how you make heavyweight gathers using dental floss. So I think it's a fantastic skill to have, and it's really fun because, you know, everyone's got dental floss in their household somewhere. So it's a really great skill without needing to purchase any expensive tools or expensive gadgets or anything, and I know how expensive sewing can be anyway. So it also gives this fantastic new technique to fabrics that are much heavier, much more difficult to wield. For instance, a gathered like heavy velvet dress or something would look absolutely stunning, and now you have the skill set to be able to do that. So those are your gathers. Please do let me know if you enjoyed this video, if you have ever seen the dental floss method before, or if it's going to be something that you're going to try. I would really love to hear your thoughts about it. Thank you so much. Have a great day. See you soon. Bye.